Hello, we are the vegan group.
Here's our PowerPoint.
So first, we'll be talking about the health benefits of going vegan, but this also applies to vegetarianism. I found a study conducted by the Harvard School of Public Health, where they studied 200,000 health professionals over 20 years, and they sent out questionnaires to these health professionals saying, what are you eating, what is your diet like? And after receiving those questionnaires back on a daily basis, they evaluated their diets using a plant-based diet index. So the foods that were solely plant-based had a very high number, while they didn't give the specific numbers, but they had a very high number, and the foods that were like meat and foods that were from animals were given a lower number. And so the study found that a high adherence to a plant-based diet, foods that were higher numbers, was associated with a 20% reduced risk of type 2 diabetes. But also keep in mind that this study also found that they also took into account foods that were vegan but were not healthy for you, such as like Oreos or very sugary drinks, and they found that foods like that had a higher risk of type 2 diabetes. So just keep in mind that being vegan, it does take into account all foods, but it is okay to have those sugary foods, but maybe not as often. Yeah.
So the American Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics says that a vegetarian or vegan diet is considered nutritionally adequate, and it can also provide some benefits. So it's also suitable for all life stages, such as pregnancy, infancy, adolescence, older adulthood, and also if you're an athlete, then being vegan or vegetarian also works for you. This academy also said that vegan and vegetarian lifestyles can give you a reduced risk of type 2 diabetes, hypertension, certain cancers, obesity, and ischemic heart disease. A Harvard Health article that I looked at specifically said that in a very large study, which was comprised of 5 smaller studies, and it had 76,000 participants, it found that on average there would be a 25% less chance of dying of heart disease if you were vegan or vegetarian.
So, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the video Conspiracy, but it's a documentary on Netflix about veganism and the environment. And so there's a clip that I wanted to show.
You know what?
The purpose of cow's milk. I did most of my growing up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. The purpose of cow's milk is to turn a 65-pound calf into a 400-pound cow as rapidly as possible. Cow's milk is baby calf growth fluid. That's what this stuff is. And everything in that white liquid, the hormones, the lipids, the proteins, the sodium, the growth factors, the IGF, every one of those is meant to blow that calf up to a great big cow. It wouldn't be there. And whether you pour it in your cereal as a liquid, whether you clot it into yogurt, whether you eat it into cheese, whether you freeze it into ice cream, it's baby calf growth fluid. And women eat it, and it's...
Okay, that's it for that video. But it should just give a good idea. When I first saw it, it just really surprised me, because I've always heard that it's for humans. This stuff is to drink to improve humans' health, but it really is for cows to consume, and so I thought that was really interesting.
Alright, so moving on, a lot of people are vegan for the ethics of the plant-based lifestyle. So, for example, 2.8 trillion fish are killed every year for our consumption on top of 150 billion land animals. And animals are commonly labeled as objects, which many morally disagree with. And, for example, in the dairy industry and meat industry, they do markings, cutting their tails, branding, which is when they take that hot plate or something to press into the side and like create a marking. And they're also force-fed, and many live in overcrowded pens. And there's several cases, such as the Fairlife dairy industry, that I'm sure many of you guys have heard about by now, where the animals are highly abused. So many people use the vegan lifestyle as a way to kind of avoid this and make sure they're not supporting it because it goes against their morals. And then I wanted to show, like, down here we can see this is a reality of factory farms versus this is what people commonly think their meat is coming from, but that's far from the reality of it. And also I wanted to mention that there's usually a lot of problems when it comes to cage-free eggs. A lot of people think that when they say cage-free it's far more humane and everything, but that's usually far from the truth, and that's just a law that they wrote so that they could sell more eggs.
Okay, so Elise talked about how many animals are raised for human consumption every year, and that takes a lot of resources. So 1/3 of ice-free land surface and 16% of the world's fresh water are used for growing livestock every year. And a recent study from the journal Environmental Science and Technology stated that beef consumption creates 1,984 pounds of CO2 annually per person. And replacing beef with plants would reduce CO2 emissions by 96% to 73 pounds. And the study also stated that if 320 million Americans went vegan tomorrow, we would save 91 million cropland acres, 278 million metric tons of CO2, and 3.7 million metric tons of reactive nitrogen annually. And this graphic shows how much a single person can reduce their footprint. So if you replace your beef consumption with consumption of plants, you can reduce croplands necessary to raise your food by 90%, greenhouse gas emissions by 96%, and nitrogen fertilizer by 94%.
So I just wanted to go over a few myths and misconceptions. So the first one is that veganism is expensive or bourgeois, which it really isn't. You don't have to eat veggie burgers or Beyond Burgers or explicit alternatives all the time. You can just eat different foods or make different meals. So for example, I read a statistic from the Food and Agriculture Organization from the UN that says India has 76 million people living on less than 125 a day, which the 125 a day part's not great, but that's not the point. And it has the highest vegetarian population in the world at about 30%. So that shows you that it doesn't have to be that expensive, or in a lot of poorer countries, people just don't eat as much meat because it's expensive. It's only cheap here because it's subsidized so much. And then also, where do you get your protein? There's plenty of foods that aren't meat or dairy that have protein and have lots of protein. Things like beans, nuts, tofu are all high in protein. Plus the average American gets about 3 times the required amount of protein, according to the World Health Organization. And most don't actually have the fiber necessary to digest that protein, so it's kind of a moot point. It doesn't really. And then there's also vitamin B12, which people say you can't get in plants or plant-based diet, which is kind of true, but even in meat, the farmers already give the animals extra B12 to kind of add to that. Plus you can just go to the grocery store and buy a 1-a-day vitamin. It gives you 3 times the daily amount for 50 cents a week. It's really cheap. And then the last one, eating meat is natural though, which not quite. So pretty much every carnivore has a really short intestinal tract because you don't really want to have meat decaying inside your digestive system. It's not really that great for you. And then most other herbivores have really long digestive tracts, which human digestive tracts are pretty long. And then humans wouldn't have even been able to eat meat until they discovered fire. So it's kind of it's not built in. You can't really just do it.
So a couple ways that people can learn more about becoming vegan or knowing at least the impacts of a vegan diet or watching a couple like documentaries. And I know like that can seem like a little bit daunting because some of the images can be like a little hard to watch, especially Earthlings, just because it does go into like how the animals are mistreated. But I think if everyone was able to watch some of like a couple minutes of footage from each of these documentaries, they would learn so much in just like 5 minutes of each. So like Cowspiracy, like there was a clip that we just showed. What the Health, Earthlings, like I mentioned before, Forks Over Knives, Dominion, Vegcade, and then of course the Bee Movie talks about the honey industry, so that's also important. What the Health specifically talks about like the health impacts of a vegan diet and how it's like so much better for your health in that sense. Each of the documentaries kind of has their own reason why they're promoting it like a vegan or plant-based diet, because there's all sorts of different reasons. And so I think when people are looking to find this diet or find a reason to go vegan or vegetarian, they need to find a reason why they're interested in it and like find their why. And then also, I just want to show you guys some like meat alternatives, just so people can. There's a lot of people who like really love the taste of meat, but I mean, there's plenty of ways to have those same flavors in your diet. Because a lot of the times that when you guys eat meat, like if you eat like a pulled pork sandwich, you're really just tasting the barbecue sauce, which you can put on other stuff and have the same flavor combination there. So I mean, we have like chorizo, sausages. I'm sure you guys have all seen like the Impossible burgers, whose actually their like stock has gone up like 265% since they released it. So it's actually becoming super popular, and companies can't even like keep it in their stores and in their restaurants because people are buying it so much. Jackfruit is actually what's pictured here. It looks exactly like pulled pork. I actually fooled my entire family and made them pulled pork sliders. So then I ate later, but they all thought that it was meat until I told them, so which is kind of cool. And then Trader Joe's actually has a lot of meatless options. So they have like meatless meatballs that I really love, and then veggie burgers, of course, are an easy way to do that as well. And then also some milk alternatives. I know a lot of people like are lactose intolerant, so they probably know a lot about these already, but there's all sorts of different types of meat alternatives, or not meat alternatives, dairy alternatives, when it comes to drinking milk or putting it in your cereal, using it in recipes, that kind of thing. And they all taste completely different, so if you want, you could try all sorts of different ones. You'll find one that you like, but it's just important. I mean, you're not supposed to really even drink cow's milk to begin with, so I mean, almond milk is great. All these different options are really awesome. So.
All right, so I'm going to talk about a day in the life, or like just what you would eat in a typical day. So we have this very graphic slide, but we're going to start off with breakfast. So just personally, I like always have oatmeal for breakfast, and I just love oatmeal, but if you don't like oatmeal or that, you can always find other recipes. Like pancakes, just don't put like milk or eggs in it. But yeah, you have like when I eat oatmeal, I put the oats, of course, and then protein, which comes from the almond butter or peanut butter, and then nuts and seeds that are on top. You get other nutrients from, and then the berries, and then orange juice. That's just, I always drink orange juice. And then going to lunch, this is just like a general picture of just like a bowl, something that a lot of people may not think like when you become vegan is like, well, I don't like, do I just eat a salad? And the answer is no. Like, I honestly don't eat that many salads, and I probably should. But I, most of the time, just like find whatever's in my fridge and just like combine it together, and then just like make this just like recipe, just like eyeballing it. So this is pictured, or what's pictured is broccoli, chickpeas, and then I think there's like a grain in the bottom, and then there's just like probably like hummus or tahini like on top of it. And that's just honestly so easy to make and really cheap, because you can just buy a can of chickpeas for like $1 or less, and then buy broccoli and quinoa or whatever kind of grain you want, and have that for several times like during the week. And then going to dinner, something that I always make is a vegan mac and cheese, because that's just the recipe that I use is really good. So you can always find like
just recipes online, or you can, once you start like cooking, you just start experimenting and find like what you like and what you don't like. For this mac and cheese, I just use pasta and then just like put almond milk, nutritional yeast, turmeric, and sea salt, and then if I want some veggies, I'll just put that in. So it's like really easy, really cost effective. And then going to snacks throughout the day. You know, apples and peanut butter or almond butter are a great snack. You know, carrots and hummus, those are just typical snacks that are vegan. There's also these hip peas, which I love. Those are becoming really popular. And then, of course, nuts are really good. Sammy is a big fan of mixed trail nuts. But yeah, so there's many different snacks that you can find that are actually vegan and that you can like, that are more healthy for you. And then desserts, the most important part. Personally, I think that vegan or plant-based desserts are even better than non-vegan desserts. Like, you really can't taste the difference if you're just trying like a vegan brownie and a normal brownie. Like, I've fooled my family, my dad, who's like completely a meat eater and who loves like all that stuff. Like, he will only eat my vegan brownies and cookies now. So that's something that I think is really easy if you want to kind of ease into it. You know, just try something sweet that's vegan, and you're like, whoa, that's really good. So, and then there's obviously a bunch of different vegan ice creams. This one is my favorite, but there's so many different ones, and they might be more expensive, but if you get it like occasionally, like, you probably shouldn't even be eating ice cream like every single day. But I mean, so, you know, everyone's different. But yeah, this is just but yeah, this is like a typical day, like what you eat as a vegan. Alright, so you might be wondering, like, how do I start, like, where do I begin? So there's five different steps. So first is get educated. You really want to know your body and know what you're going to put yourself through, or just like what you have to adjust, because every body is different and foods react differently to different bodies. So it's really important to research as much as possible, you know, watch a bunch of documentaries, find a bunch of studies, you know, find something that will, like, find research and information that, you know, is important to you and your body and how that works. So number one, get educated. Number two, take it slow. I think if you want to go vegan in the end, I would say, and you're not vegan right now, I would say ease into it, because it is a big adjustment. And if you do it overnight, like my mom did, it's just like crazy. Like, it's just completely different. You're a different person like the next day. And it was really hard, like, just to like eat all these things one day and then the next day be like, wait, what do I do? Like, I can't eat any of this. So I would say definitely start like vegetarian, you know, plant-based, just like mainly focus your meals with plants, and then pescatarian and so on. That way your body can also adjust too. Number three is cook and try new things. I know it might be hard for students or people who are really busy, but if you want this lifestyle, you really have to make an effort. So definitely cooking or just trying new things and new recipes and making that effort will really benefit you in the long run, because as a vegan, like, you need to eat. Like, you can't just like not cook or not, you know, eat certain foods. Like, you need to make sure like you're eating properly, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then four, ask for help. So my big thing is, like, I like to see like other people doing it or like other recipes. So I follow a bunch of accounts on social media, and that's really helpful for me, because I like see this recipe, I'm like, oh, that looks good, and then I'll try that or something. And then also asking for help from your friends or, you know, family members or anyone else that you know. And there's actually like a bunch of like Facebook group chats for like vegans and stuff like that. So if you really need to like just ask someone like randomly online, like, I'm sure people are more than welcome to help you. And then number five, don't give up and know your why. Sammy mentioned this earlier, but knowing your why, like why you became vegan, why you want this lifestyle, it's really, really important to keep you to find this, because if you don't, then you're going to be like, well, why am I doing this? So that's really important. And then don't give up, because it is an adjustment, and if you're not used to it, then it's going to take time, and you can't just expect it to work like overnight. Yeah. Any questions? Thank you.